And it's pertinent as we look at the Ukrainian conflict, isn't it? Because of the relevant cyber capacity of either the Ukrainians or the Russians in terms of their offensive attack on Ukraine. But what I've been interested in, Gus McLachlan, is also the private sector providing some support to Ukrainians in terms of access to the internet and so on.
This has been this is perhaps the most important, in my view, new development, noting that, of course, we're watching the terrible rollout of Russian traditional combat power, rockets and artillery, etc. But perhaps I think the most important new dimension is this idea of hacktivism. And I think I mentioned to you last time, we've got a combination of state-based assets helping the Ukrainians, but increasingly there are businesses that are involved. Big businesses, Microsoft have rapidly rolled out some patches to alleviate some vulnerabilities in the Ukraine public sector administration. But smaller organisations, and I've been talking to some of those, all of them are keen to contribute. And we're seeing real evidence of that affecting Russia's performance. We all expected Russia would be perhaps dominant in cyberspace. And I think it's fair to say, up until now, and it is still relatively early, Russia's ability to completely disrupt the Ukraine in cyberspace has been fairly modest. I think this is a really important development.
Yeah, absolutely. And incredible resilience from the Ukrainians. We're now 1 month in. I spoke to you 1 week in, and you were saying, let's just wait and see before we start to make any predictions as to how this unfolds. Now, a month in, what's your assessment of where that conflict is at?
Yeah, Kieran, I think now is a good time to start analysing what's happened. There are a number of commentators very quick to describe the Russian attempts as an outright failure. There is no question the Russians are underperforming. Their military is clunky, poorly trained, badly coordinated. But at the same time, it is brutal and it has gained considerable toehold, particularly in the south. So I'm particularly worried about their ability to gain control of Black Sea ports. I think the potential for a very heavily contested battle for Odessa is looming. I think what's really important, though, is the Ukraine performance has been exemplary. They have made this a very costly conflict for the Russians. The leadership from the top, but also the frontline tactical performance. Now, many of these Ukraine officers and NCOs have been fighting for the last decade down in the contested areas in the southeast. They have got battle experience. And our lessons from years of warfare in Iraq and Afghanistan is that makes a difference. Battle-hardened NCOs and officers make a difference. And unfortunately for the Russians, we are hearing reports of up to 10,000 conscripts who've been killed in the conflict. Now, that's bad leadership and bad performance.
Yeah.
But I think we've got to be careful that not to underestimate this Russian machine. Putin is at his most dangerous when he is in a corner. And I think he is approaching a point where he will not be able to advance any further. And I think there's a real risk that he will simply destroy everything that Russian forces can reach on their existing penetration into the Ukraine. So Russian performance being significantly under what we expected, Ukrainian performance considerably in advance of what the Russians expected. But unfortunately, that means a brutal period still to come.
And before you go, one last question on India and its response to the Russian aggression. India is one of our close allies, a member of the Quad, but a different approach to Ukraine. Are you worried about that in the context of the Quad, as it's known, or the quadrilateral security dialogue?
Indians have a proud tradition of what they call non-aligned status. I think we have to be patient with India. A lot of their equipment comes from Russia. They will be very wary of risking the readiness of their force. They are always paranoid about Pakistan. So I think we need a little bit of patience, but I think it is reasonable to expect that we get a high level of condemnation from India fairly soon about Russia's behaviour. This is simply not acceptable, and respecting their long-standing links for Russian equipment and their non-aligned status, I think it's reasonable to expect that we hear some condemnation from them soon.
Gus McLachlan, a Major General, retired, now Senior Advisor at Bondi Partners. I very much appreciate your analysis and time today, Gus. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, Kieran.